Welcome to the NFP Podcast, where we explore the empowering world of natural family planning. I'm Amy Smith. Join me and my co-host Emily Appledorn each week. Together we're here to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the spirituality behind NFP. Every week we push back against the free love culture and advocate for a culture of responsible love, where intentionality and respect are at the forefront of family planning. Join us as we discuss everything from the practicalities of charting and fertility awareness to the profound impact NFP can have on relationships and communities. Whether you're new to NFP or a seasoned pro, our podcast is your go-to resource for honest conversations, expert insights, and real-life experiences. So grab a friend, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. This is the NFP Podcast. Dr. Richard Fehring is a professor emeritus at Marquette University College of Nursing, a research scientist at the Institute for Natural Family Planning, a developer of the Marquette Method of NFP, a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing, and a former captain in the U.S. Army Nurse Corps. He received his master's and doctorate in nursing from the Catholic University of America and bachelor degrees in biology and nursing from Marquette University. He has published over 210 articles and book chapters and co-edited 3 books on human fertility. His most recent book is Living with Your Fertility, the Marquette Method of NFP. Professor Fehring taught all levels of nursing research courses for over 40 years and held the nursing research director position for several years at Marquette University. His research interests include effectiveness of family planning methods, marital responses to family planning, and religious and spiritual influences on human sexuality. He is listed as one of the top 2% of worldwide scientists for citations. Please welcome Dr. Richard Fehring to the NFP Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to the NFP Podcast. Today with us, we have Dr. Richard Fehring to discuss the Marquette Method of Natural Family Planning. We are just so delighted to have you. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Fehring.
I appreciate being asked.
Absolutely.
Nice seeing you this morning and the audience.
Yes, you too. So let's start with, I don't know you very well. I just know your professional world. But maybe you can give a little insight to our listeners to hear how you came to be a medical professional, specifically working in the world of natural family planning. So kind of where did your journey begin and where you're at now?
Okay, it's somewhat of a long story, but I'll start. It actually, I blame it on the Vietnam War, because without the Vietnam War in 1969-70 was my senior year at Marquette University. And I was a biology major. In December at that year, so your seniors think of what you're going to be doing after you graduate in June or May. And that was the time of the first draft, a lottery draft, since World War II. And so I was in the lottery for the draft, and my birth date number was real low. So I knew I was going to be drafted as soon as I graduated in May. So I decided I didn't want to be drafted, but I want to have a little more of a choice. So I talked to some Marine recruiters about officer candidate school, a whole bunch of different things. But then I found out about this medical, Army medical unit, the 452nd General Hospital, and it's a reserve unit. And I joined that, and so I became a member of that unit. So that's what started me sort of like into a medical health type area. In the meantime, I had friends who were in nursing, and I always thought, oh, those are cool courses, that they're taking, but that's just for guys and that. So, but then one night while I was listening to the radio, I heard on the radio about the Army Student Nurse Corps, and that they would pay full tuition and you would be in the regular Army going through school. So I thought, that's really cool. I mean, that'd be neat. And then after that, I found a picture of, the College of Nursing had a newspaper or a newsletter, and on it was Dr. Donald Billing. So I said, oh, here's a mail. He's a professor. So I went over to the College of Nursing, and they arranged a 2-year program for me. I applied to the Army Nurse Corps, and I got in. And so I was in the regular Army then. I was a private first class. But they sent me to Marquette University, College of Nursing, for my nursing program. And I really enjoyed nursing. And it sort of fit with me very much so. But I would never have chose that unless I had that experiences. So I graduated in nursing in 1973. I became a first lieutenant. I was sent to William Beaumont Army Medical Center, which is in El Paso, Texas, which was a brand new 8-story medical hospital there. And I was on the intensive care unit as a brand new nurse, which I could go into stories how scary that was. But then about a year later, there was this captain. Her name was Captain Nancy Adams, and she was a clinical specialist coming through the unit. And she says, I went to Catholic University for my master's to become a clinical specialist. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't mind doing that. So when I was done with I eventually became a captain. I had my own unit, but I decided to leave active duty, and I wanted to go on for further education. So I looked at Catholic University, and they had a cardiovascular program, and I thought that'd be very interesting. So I applied to Catholic U and also to the University of Alabama, but I went to the Catholic University of America, and I went into their clinical nurse specialist program for cardiovascular nursing. And I went on, I completed my master's and went on for my PhD. At that time, I was doing cardiovascular research, hypertension, stress management, and that was my area of specialty. I came back to Milwaukee and joined Marquette University and became an assistant professor. And I was doing my research in hypertension and things like that. But Marquette University College of Nursing at that time was connected to St. Joe's Hospital. And so we were in contact. We had lunch with the physician staff and things like that. One day I'm walking down the hall of the hospital, and Dr. John Brennan bumped into me, and he said, Richard, I want you to start a natural family planning program. Dr. Brennan was the baby doctor of the state of Wisconsin. He was known pro-life baby doctor. He worked with the Billings Method. He worked nationally and everything like that. He was a president of the Catholic Medical Association. Very active person, pro-life physician. So I said, Dr. Brennan, I'll see what I can do. At that time, they had some money for religious commitment funds. And then I didn't know what program we were going to do. I have no idea about natural family planning. Dr. Brennan was with Billings, but I had a graduate student. I was walking down the hospital hall, and I saw this person by the name of Debbie, graduate student, and she had these charts out on the table. I said, what are you doing, Debbie? Teaching natural family planning. Oh, yeah, what kind? She said, well, the Creighton model. And I said, oh, that's interesting, because Creighton's a Jesuit university. So I learned about that. We brought in some officials from Creighton University, and we decided we'd like to have that program at Marquette. So I wrote a grant to send 2 of the maternal child faculty to Creighton University to become Creighton model teachers. And I thought I was done with it, okay? That summer, Dean, Sister Rosalie, calls me up and says, Richard, I want you to go. One of the faculty quit, and so I want you to go. I didn't want to go. I didn't say no, but I lost sleep for I don't know how long, thinking about why am I doing this? I'm doing cardiovascular research and everything, but I did go. So I went through the Creighton program, completed the practitioner program, but to have and the other faculty, the maternal child faculty, and I started teaching the Creighton model at the College of Nursing at St. Joe's Hospital and also another Catholic hospital in Milwaukee. And we taught Creighton model from 1985 to about 2000. But to have a program to teach other nurses to teach the Creighton model, you need to have practitioners, you need to have educators. And so I had to go back and become an educator. I kept on writing grants. I think I wrote at least $75,000 of grants to have more nurses go through the Creighton program, to become practitioners, educators, supervisors. We had Dr. Jim Lynn became the medical consultant, OBGYN. Father Kurtz, a Jesuit, went for the clergy consultant. So we have this whole staff of people thinking, now we can begin a Creighton model program. Well, Sister Rosalie was no longer dean. We got another dean that wasn't real happy about natural family planning. So in order to have a Creighton program, it would be 4 courses, 2 practice courses and 2 theory courses. So I submitted that to the fact to get into a university course, you have to go through the faculty first, the college, and then it goes through the entire the university level. So it's not real easy to get courses. So I brought these courses to the faculty, and trying to get 4 courses at that time through was almost impossible. There's some other reason it was difficult. So I'm sitting there. This is about, in the meantime, I became the president of the American Academy of NFP, which is now the American Academy of Fertility Care Professionals. We had conferences in Milwaukee, very involved with it. I did research on the Creighton model, some of the effectiveness studies, but it just hit me that we were not able to have this program at Marquette University. In the meantime, I was involved with the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops. I was on the Natural Family Planning Advisory Board. And the advisory board would look at develop the standards for NFP practice and teaching for diocesan programs. And so I was with that standard. So I would travel the country looking at standards of various dioceses and archdioceses. So I know what took to pass that. In the meantime, I was doing research and various types of measuring devices for fertility. But I was at a conference that the USCCB had at Catholic University. And in one of this breakout sessions, this woman came with this little monitor with lights on. And we thought that interesting. It was Unipath. And she talked about that monitor. And I thought that's interesting that it was measuring hormone. So I came back to Marquette, still struggling, and I called up Dr. I can't think of his name right now. He was at Loyola University, and he worked with Unipath with the Persona monitor, and they had a large study that was going on in the United States. And I talked about it, and he says, well, Richard, why don't you use the Clear Blue monitor as a part of the new system in natural family planning? And so I did that. I developed the system, what we now call the Marquette model, where we actually have monitors with urine to measure the reproductive hormones, especially the estrogen and the LH. And I paired that with the mucus. The first Marquette model was a mucus with the monitor. And so you develop a system of natural family planning. You also have to have books, training books for the couples, simple training books. You need to have a charting system. You need to have a teacher training program. You need to have courses for teacher training. Those courses have to go through Marquette University also. So I developed a theory course, a practice course, eventually a medical applications course. I got those through Marquette University. At first, they were for credit courses, not easy to do. Eventually, though, because people had to go through the whole system to get into our programs, we went to a continuing education type of model. And then you need to do, okay, who are going to use these systems in natural family planning? Well, what's the first thing you're going to have to do is show how effective they are. So right away, we're doing effectiveness studies. So we launched, I think it was around the year 2000, where we first started teaching. We got some money in 1998 to start an institute, the Marquette University Institute for Natural Family Planning. And then I think we launched our model about 2000. We changed it after a couple of years in regards to make it much more simple. You can teach the Marquette Method in 15 minutes. It's a very simple method to learn, low, high, and peak, both for the monitor and the mucus. We actually like now just using the monitor along with LH test strips. So in the meantime, I kept on doing research. So we did a cohort effectiveness study, two of them. I then got money through Title 10, which is the U.S. government at CDC, to do a large comparison study, which we published. So I don't know, I think we have about at least 10, 11 effectiveness studies, but not only with regular cycles, postpartum. We developed a postpartum breastfeeding protocol that's very utilized a lot. We did research on that, also with perimenopause, postpartum, PCOS. We did tons of studies, and we continue to do tons of study. So that's how we began. We now also have an organization called the Marquette Model Professional Association, which is the accrediting body for our teachers. And all our teachers are health professionals. They have to either be professional nurses, advanced practice nurses, PAs, physicians, etc., who teach the Marquette system and natural family planning. So that was my long story.
That's excellent. That wasn't very long at all. I have so many follow-up questions. Maybe one you can start with. Why is Marquette unique from other methods in the qualification of their teachers? Why is it that Marquette requires the teachers to be certified medical professionals?
Okay, if you look at the Humani Vitae, the cyclical from St. Paul, Pope Paul VI, if you look at the reading on Evangelium Vitae, John Paul II, they appeal to physicians and nurses to be the teachers of natural family planning. It fits. These are health professionals. They bring credibility to a system. I think being at the university, Marquette University, and all the research we have done brings credibility. Having health professionals bring credibility. I actually think if I look at some of the studies with Creighton model with other models that just say that don't have health professionals doing it, I think the effective rates are much lower than compared to actually having health professionals. So the encyclicals call for that. And also, I think it really fits within our mission of health professionals. In 1951, before 1950, natural family planning or rhythm, the simple thermal method was not promoted a lot. In fact, I go back to the stories in regards to in the United States where a professor at OBGYN at Loyola University got chastised and kicked out of the university because he wrote a little book called The Rhythm and was got to couples, 400,000 copies. Well, at that time, it was thought that only the priest and the physician, along with the couples, will decide whether they can use natural family planning or rhythm at that time. But that broke open in 1951. Pius XII said in a audience to Catholic nurses, OB nurses in Italy, he says, it is your role to teach these methods, but not only teach these methods, to know the moral law and to teach that behind that. So that was a call for nurses to do that. So that's not something.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that bit of history. I'm familiar with Humani Vitae, obviously, and the call to doctors in the professional medical world to step in. But yeah, I hadn't heard that the extent of the church's call to really employ medical professionals. That's excellent.
Well, and also Catholic universities to be involved in Evangelium Vitae, that Catholic nurses, Catholic universities should be involved with this.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I'm so appreciative of the research that you've done too. And I guess I'm curious because we did have Dr. Phil Boyle on, and he mentioned that there's also the workings of an effectiveness study to make sure to measure couples' intentions at the time of conception. Is this something that you could address when it comes to NFP effectiveness studies? And, especially when we're talking about perhaps like method failure, and I'm using that word just in relationship to like, a word to use as far as diagnosing when someone's conceived and they don't want to conceive. So when something is classified as that, with a behavior-based method, it's really important to make sure you've checked with the couple to ensure that they were really not intending to get pregnant at that active intercourse. And it's my understanding that previous effectiveness studies didn't necessarily measure that. They measured it at the beginning of a cycle. And we know that that intention can change from the beginning of one cycle to the beginning of a next cycle. And so that can impact, a method could look less effective than it actually is because a couple was knowingly engaging in a day of fertility to have an active intercourse, knowing that they could potentially get pregnant, even if, 3 weeks before they told said researcher, we don't want to get pregnant this cycle. So anyway, maybe you could address that a little bit. And then I think Dr. Boyle had mentioned that they're trying to put a study together now, or there's a study in the works measuring method effectiveness by asking couples more proactively, like day to day, what's your intention?
Yes, well, doing effectiveness research for natural family planning, excuse me, is not very easy. There's also, in regards to, when you're in a actual study where you have consent, you go through the IRB, you have to have those protocols set before you can do your research, okay? It is in fact, we have a whole list of criteria, the very complicated criteria to have very good natural family planning studies. In fact, in 2018, Dr. Rachel Uruzio and et al. With Joe Stansford, they came out with a systematic review of studies, and they had all their criteria and everything to look at. The Marquette model came out to be one of the best, along with SensiPlan from Europe. So when you're doing a study, you have to be kind of rigorous. Part of it is looking at intention. So with the Marquette model, we had an online site, and the couple had to record whether they're intending to use the method to achieve or to avoid. And then they have the man and the woman were asked how hard they were trying to avoid and how much they were trying to avoid from 1 to 10. So that's just indicated. Again, this is research. Now, when we looked at effectiveness, then we look at what is called correct use and typical use. Correct use is cycles that they use correctly, and if they got pregnant during a correct use, okay? So you just pull out those pregnancies and those cycles to do a correct use effectiveness. And then you pull all the cycles together for those couples that are using it incorrectly, not very rigorous with the use, and you pull it all together. That's typical use. So for effectiveness, you get two data. You get the correct use and typical use. To get correct use, you have to do prospectively, and yes, you ask them in the beginning of the cycle your intentions. However, when we classify the pregnancy, we don't only look at their intention before, we also do a pregnancy evaluation and the intention for that act of intercourse and whether they're trying to achieve or to avoid. And then we also look at the charts where the intercourse was it during the fertile time or not? And we have 2 reviewers, and we're trying to do inter-rater reliability. So those are all the checks that we went through with Marquette model in regards to doing this. And then you put them all together, and you also do the correct use and the typical use. Now that's a rigorous study, and it's called, I forgot the name. There's a difference between a study where you have all the consent and everything, but if we do a retrospective study where I looked at what has happened already and do effectiveness, you can't do a correct use, probably, unless people were looking at that. But we also have done retrospective where we asked teachers to look at how many people got pregnant in regards to using the method. And that was just a typical use, and we have done those. So there's differences in regards to doing that. In order to get credibility, though, you need to do those type studies. But if you notice, we do ask their intentions also in the time of intercourse and whether they change their mind or not. I would just also say in regards to theologically, if couples actually have a serious reason for avoiding, then they should be avoiding and not let the act of their emotions overtake them. Okay, so there's also that mixture that's going in there. We also look at ease of use, acceptability. All those things are part of our studies. I don't know. Did I clarify things pretty much?
You did. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. Yep. So I wanted to bring that up because, the CDC, and I'll put it up on the screen for those of you who aren't maybe familiar with it. The CDC still has that chart on their website with effectiveness for family planning options, and fertility awareness-based methods is at the bottom as
Yeah.
being one of,
I thought
and
they changed some of that. Some people went after them, and
I think some things might have been changed, but it's still floating around out there. So if
yes,
you
yes,
if you
yes.
do a Google search, you can find it. So just something I like to draw attention to when we have someone who's so evidence-based on the podcast is to just remind our listeners that one, like the study design is quite extensive, and the process of evaluating then the results of that study is also extensive and multifaceted. Um, and each method is measured independently of the other. So to just lump all fertility awareness-based methods together in the way that it's done and put together for that public-facing document is somewhat
Yes,
misleading. So I just
but
would want to encourage people to look into individual methods and then the way studies are done.
yes, and there needs. I call for it. There needs to be. If you look at um, who has done studies in the United States, most of your people on this podcast is from the United States. There's very few studies that have looked at some of the popular methods in the United States. Dr. Joseph Stanford just came out recently with a Creighton model study, so you might want to look at that sometime,
Oh,
which was
oh
very
yeah,
important.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love
Um,
to have him on.
okay. Also had
Okay.
a thought, but then I lost it.
Oh, okay. Well, if it comes back, just talk
Yes.
over me. So let's just give a brief overview for those who might not be familiar, although we have talked about on the podcast before. What is the Marquette method of family planning? How would you describe it to someone who is interested in learning about it?
Well, I would say that it is one of the most research-based methods in the world. I would say it is one of the most effective methods in the world, and I would be able to give them research studies. I would also be able to give them systematic reviews where they looked at other studies, other methods, and where Marquette came out. Um, I would also tell them it's one of the easiest to learn. Certainly in 15 minutes, you can, that doctor back at Loyola University, Dr. Leo Latz, he wrote that little book, and he said he would like, for the purpose, it was real simple rhythm method. And he said nurses, physicians, social workers should be able to teach us within 15 minutes. So that was my goal. And in the 2010s, there was also a movement to develop simple methods. At Georgetown, they have the beads method, standard A method, the 2-day method, very simple to teach. In fact, right now there's the DOT, which is you just put the first day of your menses in this app and it'll calculate when you're fertile or not. So things get simpler and simpler for couples and that, but it also have to be effective. So one of the the gold standard of determining fertility or the day of ovulation is through ultrasound. Well, we can't do that now, even though there are portable monitor ultrasound things, but the next standard would be actually measuring the reproductive hormones. And so by utilizing the Clearview monitor, you actually get a very objective measures of your fertile time and be very confident. Couples who use the Marquette method said, well, this is very easy. It's also very objective for us. That, they're not guessing when they're fertile or not type of thing. So I would say it's very effective. It's easy to use. It is very modern. We're also looking now not only utilizing the Clearview monitor, but doing studies with Dr. Thomas Bouchard and other people in regard to the newer reproductive urine monitors that actually measures the levels of the hormones, tracks them out, and you can look at it on a dashboard, real time. You can see the reproductive hormones of a woman's cycle. And you can learn a lot from that. The woman's cycle is also a vital sign for health. And so very much so in regards to looking at abnormalities of the hormones are also very important. So I don't know if I answered your question. Yes.
You did, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's a hormonal urinary metabolite method of family planning. It's not a
Yes,
cervical
but we
mucus based.
still teach mucus, but we found in our research that by using the monitor along with a second check with the LH test strip in the afternoon, that's probably the most effective right now. We also have simpler methods. We have mucus only method. We have mucus and monitor, mucus monitor, test strip only. So we have variability in regards to the choices. Right now, we're doing a study in Uganda at 4 hospitals with the nurses programs, each of the 4 hospitals. And, the method is taught to women who are in poor villages and things like that. So they're using mucus, but also cheap test strips to help them in regards to do it. So we're doing some analysis of that study right now.
So for women who are, I guess at what point, because sometimes in this world of NFP, you can find people pretty committed to their camp and their method. Although I've noticed over the last 10 years, though, that has definitely shifted a little bit and a little bit more of a philosophy that, the best method is going to be whatever works best for you. But still
Maybe.
there's some.
I would say maybe. We also, Marquette is known for our postpartum protocols and everything, and also studies with that. We have at least 2 studies, and we have been refining it, and we continue to refine it. So,
Yeah, so maybe you can touch base a little bit or talk to us a little bit about that is, during that postpartum window, why is it that, cervical fluid is such a challenging biomarker for women to measure and observe to monitor fertility return?
well, I would say it's challenging for many reproductive categories. Looking at charts after charts after charts, you see Dr. Colombo, who from University of Padua, he looked at the Billings method. I think that he looked at the actual fertile time as determined by the markers was like 17 days. So mucus can be very variable. I mean, it's a good indicator, but there's a lot of problems with it. And that's why having the monitor and that sometimes helps couples. Some women can use mucus and do real well, but there could be a lot of problems why there's a lot of variability and where the mucus is at. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. What was the question again?
So for people who are using a cervical fluid method, if they're just using cervical fluid and they're not having any luck, then using the monitor can help kind of be a cross check.
At least you could even drop the mucus and just use the monitor along with our algorithm. But I also would say that you could also use a simple LH test strips in regard to looking at peak time and everything, so that you can look at your mucus and whether it's actually helping you track it well.
What is it about I guess, then why are there still cervical mucus only methods if they're shown to not be as effective at monitoring fertility as, the LH and the hormone monitor?
Well, your mucus doesn't cost anything, so it's low cost. You don't have to buy test strips. You don't have to have a monitor and things like that. So yes, so that's a very big advantage there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But test strips, if you just get LH test strips, they're very cheap too. So I mean, you can have a very cheap method using the LH test strip and algorithm, or LH test strip, algorithm, and mucus to have a very effective system.
Right. Okay, I think that was pretty extensive. I mean, it's like you said, it is a pretty simple method and approach to monitoring your
Yes.
biomarkers.
Okay, and monitoring it during the postpartum transition is also very difficult. The most difficult is determining what we call cycle 0, or the amenorrhea from the birth of a child until the first ovulation. And that can be so variable in regards to women in that. It could be months and months. Now, we do our effectiveness study looking at all those months as one cycle. A lot of people look at that as months of use. Well, she's not fertile all those months, so that's not really a true effectiveness. So we do have protocols for the postpartum in regard to being able to track the beginnings of fertility during the postpartum amenorrhea, and then when you get into the menstrual cycles. And we also have the variability of the first 6 cycles. Most women postpartum who get pregnant are usually in the first 3 menstrual cycles. And that's because they're very long, and they gradually, after about 4 or 5 cycles, go down to a normal length type of thing. But trying to determine where that fertile time is, it's out here. Sometimes it's not easy to track that. So we do have protocols for that.
How did the protocols come about? And did you use your time as a Creighton model professional or your knowledge from Creighton to help form the Marquette Method? Or yeah, how did
I
all the
learned a
protocols
lot
come
through the
about?
Creighton program, definitely. I would say that, but we had to use our own system and everything, develop our own protocols. We have not taken anything from Creighton to be our protocols. It's our own protocols and that. And we do research. We have research and publications, our postpartum protocol. Obviously, the protocols for achieving and avoiding pregnancy. And we continue to develop these protocols and look at them.
So we talked to our listeners a lot about just the science that underlies natural family planning is just that. It's just science. People have looked at human reproduction and how it works and what biomarkers are, and it's all published in peer-reviewed journals, things about cervical fluid changes and cervix changes and temperature rises, et cetera, et cetera. So you just used that knowledge and what we know about human biology to create these protocols and then ran studies to see how effective they were.
Yes, we do. Yes. And it's kind of interesting. I did another number of talks and also wrote about the history of natural family planning. And it's kind of interesting how in the 1800s, how much they actually knew, and some of the beautiful drawings that they have in regard to there were also some calendar-based systems that are very similar to what we have today.
Oh, wow. How interesting
Yes.
is that? Yeah.
Compellment and different people. Yes. So.
Wow. Okay, well, I know that there will be people that are very interested because of the age we're in with artificial intelligence and, they call it
That's huge.
femtech,
Yeah.
female technology. I mean,
So
yeah,
uh,
I would love to hear
about
you talk about that.
about AI. So I belong to the Archdiocese of Milwaukee Healthcare and Bioethics Committee, and they asked me to talk about natural family planning and AI. And so I went to my good friend ChatGPT and said, ChatGPT, please develop a system of natural family planning that follows church teaching and that use the most rigorous and scientific indicators of fertility. Well, in 10 seconds, they came out with Marquette Model Plus, something like that. I think it's called
Wow.
Marquette Model Plus.
Yeah.
And then they had the whole thing, the descriptions and everything like that. Then they asked me,
Right.
well, do you want a couple booklet for them, a teaching booklet for couples?
Right. Right.
That
Came
came
right
out.
out.
Do you want
Right.
a teacher training program manual? Came right out. Finally, do you want to do some research on this new? And it gave an outline of a
Study design.
study that we could submit. I looked at some of the articles that they cited. One of them was mine, and it was hallucinating. So they come up with fake things. But it's interesting. Right. They also could have a person that looks just like you in your voice teaching people.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? My gosh,
Yes.
that's crazy.
And I see that in the future too, that you're going to have,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just going to get
probably going on right now on that. So.
Right. Maybe somewhere. But right now they have the monitors. I know a lot of women, especially, women who are, let's focus on just the Christian population, right? And Catholic women who are devout, wonderful mothers who they desire to follow church teaching, and they just really would like something very simple and very accurate. And we've joked on the podcast before, like, with this AI advancement, with the knowledge that we have and these different femtech devices that are coming out, will there just be like a mirror one day where we can stand in front of the mirror, it like kind of scans us, and then it says you're fertile or you're not fertile. This day, right? Because that's all you really need to know is the day. But anyway, I know you're doing some work with the mirror monitor, and to measure it against
led by Dr. Thomas Bouchard. Yes, we're doing
that's
work with
right.
that.
And
we're looking at the monitor with regular cycles, also postpartum, also PCOS, cancer, and all those different. So we're looking at all those variabilities there.
isn't that amazing? Yeah. But using the monitor kind of like just in place of the clear blue monitor, using the Marquette protocols to measure effectiveness. Is that right?
I'm sorry again?
You're using the mirror monitor almost like in place of the clear blue monitor, still using the Marquette protocols to measure the effectiveness of the monitor. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, we're beginning to determine the effectiveness. Yeah. We don't have any published studies for that yet.
Nothing done yet. Right. That's what's
still
in the works.
Yes.
Okay. That's great.
That's future. Yes. But I see in the future, already you can wear monitors to track your blood sugar from a daily basis, and it has it printed out. Well, in the future, you can have a bracelet or something like that will be measuring all those hormones and tracking it out just by wearing that type of thing. So that's the future.
So listening to you talk, I think I might know your answer, but I still want to hear your answer. So how do you feel about that? Like, I think that that's really exciting. And I've heard from people in this world who are pretty gung ho on the body literacy side of, well, we don't need devices. Like, we need to learn our bodies and not rely on those. And I understand that too. There's definitely merit in knowing how the body works.
I was in biofeedback with cardiovascular and it's listening to your body, but we're utilizing simple devices to listen to your body too. So, but yes, learning to listen to your body is very important for your health.
Right. But there's also nothing wrong with using technology to help you interpret what it is you're seeing and listening to. Yeah. I think sometimes that there's a little bit of people make sense or feel like there's like an ambiguity about that. And is this okay? Almost like we have to choose the harder way. Otherwise, it's not the holy way or the right way.
Well, I also look at, and I like the term natural family planning, not fertility awareness-based methods, because natural family planning has such a big meaning to it in regards to, and also people need to know what is natural about natural family planning. I had a discussion with one of the editors of a OBGYN journal, and she says there's nothing natural about natural family planning. They have to chart their cycles and one a daily and put their stuff down. That's not natural. Well, she didn't know what natural meant in regards to, I mean, yes, there's not putting anything in your body, but that's not what the church means. The church means it's natural because it maintains the integrity of the sexual act between the man and the woman. That's what natural is. It does not split that act.
That's actually why we have the podcast. That's why we decided to call the podcast the NFP Podcast, because I really it's very important to me that we differentiate between, using a method to monitor your fertility but you were still having sex in whatever context we deem to be permissible and okay. It's like, no, sex has a very specific meaning. Our human sexuality, being made in the image and likeness of God, all of these play a part in the monitoring of fertility and health. It's not just, we can monitor fertility, but then still behave however we want, really. Like they go hand in hand. So I agree with you.
A little side story. I was at a national CDC Title 10 leadership meeting 2 days in Washington, D.C. The Title 10 mandates by the federal government that these Title 10 clinics not only provide contraception, but also natural family planning. So when we have a more conservative government, a lot of times the NFP group gets together and talks about that for the federal government. Well, the last one I was at, one of the developers of the natural cycles which
Oh, yeah.
was validated in Europe and also the United States. Well, I talked to the developer of that as I was walking to the meeting, was walking with him. And he said, yeah, we developed this system because we didn't want people having to use condoms all over the place and sort of saving the condoms rather than saving the whales type of thing. But the other thing he meant, and if you look at the studies on the effectiveness of natural cycles, about 75% are using condoms. So it's really a condom-based system. It's not natural family planning. I call it TCU, teaching condom use, rather than natural family planning. So
Really funny. In fact, I remember way back when I was working with Marguerite at FACS, she had me read an effectiveness study, and it was measuring condom use. And it was so interesting to see one of my colleagues at FACS at the time, she pointed this out to me because I didn't pick up on it. But when you looked at their charting, they were very smart, and they kept their acts of intercourse during the quote unquote fertile window when they were seeing mucus to the very tail ends of it. And that's where they would use a condom, but they never engaged in intercourse when they were seeing peak type mucus, even with a condom. They abstained completely. So their abstinence or their condom use, they kept it outside of this very fertile window. And that was always something I found to be very interesting, and would find to be interesting if there was a condom study looking at use of the condom during that peak fertility time to see truly how effective is
yeah.
it at avoiding pregnancy. But
Yeah, it's
anyway, that's
very
for another
interesting
day.
seeing. We had a online system for about 10 years that we developed, where I had the dashboard where I can see we have about 11,000 women charting in our system. So you think of all those
Wow.
charts, and Dr. Mary Snyder, who is the director of our institute now, and I were on that system every day answering questions and everything. But what
Wow.
I found fascinating is just even looking at intercourse patterns and what that
Mm.
tells. And sometimes, with a new couple just married, you see a little bit more intercourse. I also done study that showed that, and other studies have shown that the maximum amount of intercourse for satisfaction and happiness is 6 times a month. And that's pretty much what Catholics using natural family planning. But sometimes you see older couples and it's intercourse almost every day.
Yeah.
And I find that troubling because it's almost that it's habitual rather than loving type of thing. So there's different patterns.
Mm.
Just kind of fascinating seeing the various patterns of intercourse and that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember when I was going through my teacher training, someone had mentioned that, like, when you look at the pattern of intercourse, recognizing you're not a psychologist or a counselor or anything, but that you can get some insight into, oh, is this healthy? Is there something else going
yeah,
on here?
yeah, yeah. Or abuse, things like that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, that can definitely happen, sadly. So, okay, well, Dr. Fehring, before we wrap up, maybe you could just share, what are you doing now in the world of NFP?
Okay. Well, one of the things, in fact, I and Dr. Michael Manhart from CCL and one of my
Oh,
graduate
yeah.
students, Idette Day, is going to be presenting at University Faculty of Life Conference. We're going to have a panel, was looking at our latest study. We've been working with Dr. Teresa Natari from the USCCB. She's the director of the NFP department at the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops. She was interested in archdiocese and diocesan marriage preparation programs that require a full course versus those that only have a intro or a short intro for natural family planning. So she asked us to look at that. So right now we have looked at the Archdiocese of Milwaukee and the Archdiocese of Phoenix. And they're very similar in regards to the number of marriages, a little over 1,000 every year. So we looked at couples from about 3 years from the Archdiocese of Milwaukee and also Phoenix. Phoenix required a full course. So we're looking at differences in regards to spirituality, looking at spirituality, spiritual well-being, relation with God, and things like that. Then also relational things regard to better communications, understanding your body, things like that. So we're measuring those things and looking at the differences. We're also looking at the differences of how many couples are using contraception versus, ending up using contraception versus not. We're also looking at being open to life, which is very important. And some of the indicators that are really bad indicators are cohabitation before marriage is a big indicator whether they end up using NFP versus contraception, but also in all these other factors in regards to being open to life. It's a big factor. So cohabitation is really not a good thing for couples in that. So where it goes leads them down into the road. To cohabitate, they usually have to be on contraceptive, things like that. I remember some studies used to be that said that about 75% of marriage preparation couples are on contraception already and being active. So that's a struggle. So we're doing some research on that, and some of the exciting research in regards to what we're finding, the differences between those using NFP versus contraception, but also full courses versus not full course, but then really looking at being open to life and looking at the factors of cohabitation, church attendance, and things like that. So that's what we're looking at right now. We're also doing, as I mentioned, the Uganda study, those 4 programs out in Uganda. They're starting using the very simple Marquette Method. And we're doing the studies with Dr. Bouchard in regards to the hormonal monitors now that are out there. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Continue to do research and writing, and I'm trying to pull together my book that I wrote. Much of it is in regards to response to Evangelium Vitae and all my research and all different things. I'm trying to pull that together as a book that I want to publish sometime this year. So.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Sounds like great work. I'm so curious about the diocese study, in particular, the whether you have couples use a full course or if they just kind of do an NFP overview class.
Yeah.
What the outcomes are to that. I find that to be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, we submitted it for publication. Hopefully they'll get accepted soon.
Yeah, I'll keep my eyes out for that.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that because that's something as a teacher, I know I've talked to a lot of NFP teachers and I love doing marriage prep. It's probably my favorite couple to work with actually is I love doing marriage prep because you just get people at various stages of their spiritual journey, their awareness of church teaching. I just find it very invigorating. I like working and doing marriage prep stuff. But
Are you a focused couple?
A focused couple?
Yeah.
No.
I just wonder, I haven't looked at that. What is their framework for these couples to provide them? And are these couples who are teaching these couples, are they for natural family planning? Or are they contracepting? I wonder if there's any standards for that in regards to, yeah.
So that would be really important.
Yeah, I think even looking at the makeup of the marriage preparation programs of what they provide and what's effective that would be interesting.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I know why I like doing that so much, and it's just me, I don't do it with my husband, but when I talk to couples that are in that season and giving them information about natural family planning in a broad way and about church teaching, it takes me back to my own marriage prep experience, which is why I feel so passionate about it. Because when my husband and I were going through our marriage prep, we had this three weekends in a row. We met with the deacon at the parish and his wife. And I remember the time that it was a small group of couples. And I was aware of church teaching. My husband's aware of church teaching. We're on board with church teaching. This is something we really believe and feel convicted about. And when it was being presented, at least this is from what my memory serves, when it was being presented, it felt very glossed over. The church says this, but it's almost like it's not really a big deal if you don't really listen and if you use birth control. And it was like a fire lit inside of me and my hand shot up and I was like, I'm sorry, isn't it a mortal sin to use birth control and have sex as a married couple? And it got very awkward in there very quickly.
Yes.
Um, but I was so like, you cannot not tell these couples like they're about to marry you. Like it's almost like you're not giving them a full consent about this
Oh,
sacrament that they're entering into. So that, right, Dr. Fehring, like, so they also have the ability to walk away. Like the church teaches very specifically about here's what marriage is. Here's what you're preparing for. If you don't want to do this, go get married at justice of the peace or don't get married. Like this is what the church teaches. And I feel like sometimes, again, I'm kind of on a soapbox, so I apologize, but I feel like sometimes it's just watered down to a point where it's like, well, we just want them to be married in the church. So let's just like not give them the full, gamut
yes.
of what they have to live up to.
There's a problem with the church regards to getting these teachings to couples. So I was at the Archdiocesan Healthcare and Bioethics Committee, and Dr. Jim Lynn, who is OBGYN in the Catholic system, he was complaining about or mentioning that most of the physicians in the practice of OBGYN there are prescribing a birth control pill. Birth control, I mean, contraception, I should say, all different types of contraception. And that's a problem type of thing. And I was saying to him, well, Jim, Dr. Lynn, those docs would not be prescribing all these things if we had the couples were demanding not to use contraception and that. So why
Right.
aren't Catholic couples demanding to use that? So then we were looking at the priests in the room.
Right.
Why aren't they teaching this? You don't hear that in church in homilies or anything like that. So couples are sort of oblivious to it. So
Right, right. And that's where I don't know, for whatever reason, I just feel very strongly like we just need to you just say it. You just say, like, here it is. We don't want you to live together. We don't want you to do these things. And there's a great reason why, because all of those things, at least, it's my understanding, right, of how sin works, is it veils our eyes to see the truth. And you need to freely enter into this sacramental marriage, fully aware of the demands of the sacrament and the person you're engaging in the sacrament with. And if you are living in this way, you might be missing something. So take a step back, be rightly ordered. Let's get to confession, see what's going on, and evaluate whether or not this is going to be the best thing for you and for him and for this, your future moving forward.
yeah.
But it just feels like
Yeah,
we're not
part of
pausing.
marriage is fully giving of oneself, fully giving.
Right,
Well, with contraception, you're not doing that.
right,
You're not
exactly,
living.
exactly.
Yes, and
Yeah,
then there's also be fruitful and all that stuff in that. So
right,
yes.
right.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the other thing. The Catholics. Um, if you look at, I look at the Natural Survey of Family Growth that looks at the. There's like 3,500 variables, but it was developed since 1973 for the government to look at the effects of contraception on life, family life in the United States and marriage and things like that. Well, they look at who's on contraception and all the different types and everything, and how well Catholics are pretty much the same as the general population, except I think that we get sterilized more than. And part of that is, I think, speculation. Dr. Tentler from Catholic University, historian, mentioned that. Well, if they're constantly on contraception, if they're really truly confessing, they have to confess every time. Whereas if you get
Mhm.
sterilized, you have to do it once, type of thing. So
Oh, that's an
I don't know
interesting
if that
theory.
happens, but it makes
Right.
sense, type of thing. I don't even think people think that using contraception is ever sinning anymore. So
Right.
yeah, so
Right.
they know that. Well, then the other thing is, why is our parishes closing all over the place? There's not enough babies. In the
Right.
United States, we are way below
Replacement rate.
replacement, and
Right.
Catholics are just about the same. One of our
Yeah.
parishes here in Milwaukee, St. Rita, it used to be the second largest parish in the archdiocese, 7,000 families. It just closed.
Oh, sad, Dr.
Yeah,
Fehring. That's sad.
yeah. So that's
Man.
sad because people aren't having, enough babies, Catholics. And
Right.
usually where vocation comes from, usually a lot of times from larger families. So
Right. Right.
another
Yeah, it's
factor
all
that happens. Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. It's all interconnected. Yeah. We talk about that on the podcast. Emily and I talk about that a lot to try to encourage our priests. We say it on the regular, like, please, please don't water down this vocation of marriage. Please call us to the high standard that God has called us to. Help us to live that out. Let us know that this is really important and it matters. And then, we want more vocations. Let's have, encouraging holy family life and yeah, just the
So
connectedness.
I give a talk every year, or I give a class every year at our seminary. As Father Bustos is a sexual ethics class. So this about 4 weeks ago, I gave the class, and I ended it by saying, these are some of them deacons that are just going to become priests in a month. I said one of the best things you could do is tell your congregation, your couples, have babies. In fact, what is the first commandment that God gave?
Be
fruitful and multiply. We're not doing that. So
right. Yeah. Yeah. It's trying to encourage the church to just live out whatever God has given us to evangelize, to be evangelizing in this world of NFP. I think is really important. So, and you're doing that. So I'm so grateful, Dr. Fehring, for all the work that you've done. Thank you for your time today. This has been a wealth of information for everyone. I'm going to link in the show notes for people that are listening and watching to Dr. Fehring's research. You can go to the Marquette Method website, get more information there as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Fehring, for your time.
Okay, before I leave.
Oh, sure.
I see at the little top of the head there. Who is this?
This is Moses.
Moses. Okay.
Moses.
I stop when I walk to the grocery store, when I see the buggies come by, I usually stop, ask, can I see little baby? How is baby today? I love asking what are their names.
Oh, that's very sweet.
They probably think I'm weird, but I get a kick out of that. And a lot of them like to, oh, here's my baby, this is that. So the names are interesting. What are the names right now? It's more the older names. So like for my parents' generation are the names they're using a lot of times. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity of talking with you and all the people on your podcast. And thank you, Dr. Fehring, for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Fehring. Take good care, okay?
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That wraps up another episode of the NFP Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us by sending us an email with your questions and stories to thenfpshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more insights, tips, and heartfelt conversations about natural family planning. Until then, love responsibly.